Most enforcers lasted a decade. Derek Boogaard lasted 6 years. 6'7", 265 pounds, the boogeyman. The NHL needed someone willing to destroy his body for a roster spot.
Boogaard with a gigantic reach, one of the most fearsome fighters in the NHL.
Nobody counted what it took from him.
I'd like to be able to blame someone.
Derek Boogaard wasn't born to fight. He was made into a fighter. And once you understand why, everything that happens next makes terrible sense. Derek Boogaard grew up as the son of a Mountie in small-town Saskatchewan, moving every few years as his father's RCMP postings changed. He was shy, struggled to read, and had what his father later described as cognitive and behavioral issues, particularly with impulsivity.
He was very mild, very quiet, very laid back.
One grade school teacher routinely sent him to a closet when he became disruptive. By 9th grade, his average sat at 65%. The growth spurt hit hard. By 15, Derek stood 6'4" and weighed 210 pounds. The rapid development brought chronic knee pain and made him tower over everyone. Parents complained he was too large to play with children his age. He was bullied for being both enormous and the son of a cop. When fights came to him, he won them decisively, though his friends and family insist he never sought them out. The turning point came during a Melfort Mustangs game when his team was losing badly. Derek jumped into the opposing bench and tried to fight multiple players. His father, watching from the stands, had never seen him like that. After being ejected, Derek sat next to his father. Scouts from the Regina Pats of the Western Hockey League approached them. They weren't concerned about the outburst. They were impressed. They offered him a spot in junior hockey, the first step toward the NHL. The path wasn't smooth. In his first game with the Regina Pats, Derek backed out of a fight. The team demoted him to a lower division. During the 1998-99 season, he scored 2 goals in 35 games and accumulated 166 penalty minutes. He begged his coach to let him play in a tournament. The coach refused. Derek quit and cried the entire 8-hour drive home. His mother recalled asking him why this had to happen, saying all he wanted was to show people what he could do. By fall, he had reached 6'7". The Regina Pats called him back. Desperate to prove himself, he fought teammates 12 times in 4 scrimmages. Teachers saw a problem student. Hockey scouts saw something else, a weapon. Junior hockey coaches were direct. He wasn't there to play hockey. He was there to fight. Enforcers protected star players and policed the ice. It required size, pain tolerance, and willingness to absorb punishment. Derek had the size. He developed the rest through repetition. He moved to the Prince George Cougars, losing his first fight to Eric Goddard, a future NHL enforcer. In the 2000-01 season, he played 61 games, scored once, and led the team with 245 penalty minutes. A league poll named him the toughest player in the Western Conference. After games, he would call home. His mother heard the worry in his voice, but also his determination. He was building a resume written in broken hands and concussions that no one counted. On draft day 2001, the Minnesota Wild selected him in the 7th round, 202nd overall. He had made it, but the NHL had a dark bargain waiting for him: violence for validation. For 6 years, Derek Boogaard did his job, and while fans cheered, his body was quietly surrendering. Derek made his NHL debut with Minnesota on October 5th, 2005. Within 2 weeks, he had his first assist, his first fight, and his first goal. Coach Jacques Lemaire saw the intimidating effect he had on opponents and gave him a roster spot. The statistics tell one story: 277 games, 3 goals, 589 penalty minutes, 69 official fights. The reality was worse. Hundreds more punches landed in practice and training, blows that never made it onto any injury report. On October 27, 2006, Derek threw the punch that announced his arrival. Todd Fedoruk chased him down the ice, baiting him with tugs on his jersey. 7 seconds after their gloves dropped, Fedoruk's cheekbone shattered. Surgeons inserted metal plates and mesh to rebuild the right side of his face. Fedoruk later described it: "I was in a bad position and he hit me hard. The hardest I've ever been hit. I didn't lose consciousness, but I went straight on the ice." Georges Laraque, considered the toughest man in hockey, later admitted he retired partly to avoid Derek. "I knew sooner or later he would get the better of me. I like my face, and I just didn't want to have it broken." The headaches started, then the memory loss. Teammates noticed Derek forgetting plays they had run 100 times. He began writing notes to himself just to remember basic tasks. Team disguised concussions on injury reports as shoulder or back problems, even when his helmet didn't fit because of the bumps on his head. There were no protocols. When his mind went dark after a hit, he kept playing. A friend later said a neurologist asked Derek to estimate how many times that happened. 4? 5? Derek laughed and said, "Try hundreds." The real damage was happening in the team's medical rooms. After fights, his hands swelled, his face bruised, his back screamed.
He had problems with dexterity in his fingers, like the concussion issue.
Team doctors prescribed Vicodin, Percocet, and Oxycontin. During the 2007-08 season, Derek asked teammate Todd Fedoruk about painkillers. Fedoruk, who had battled addiction for a decade, recalled Derek saying the pills worked really well and asking questions about taking them recreationally. Fedoruk's advice was simple: be careful. 2 years later, Derek was in rehab. By 2010, Derek signed the contract he'd dreamed of signing his whole life with the New York Rangers. 4 years, $6.5 million. But it was already too late. At New York Rangers training camp, Derek weighed 300 pounds, 40 pounds over his listed weight. The Rangers worried his effectiveness was gone, that he could get seriously injured in fights. Within weeks, he proved them wrong. He scored his first goal since his rookie season, ending a 234-game drought, and won his fights. Fans chanted his name at Madison Square Garden. Then it fell apart. In early November, he defeated Edmonton's Steve McIntyre in a fight. During a second fight in the same game, McIntyre broke his nose, probably causing another concussion. With the nose still not healed, he played in Ottawa on December 9th. Matt Karkner hit him first. Instead of retaliating, Derek held on and looked away. Karkner later said he noticed Derek kinda stopped fighting. The concussion ended his season. It ended his career. He was 28 years old and had played 22 games for the Rangers. The identity the NHL built for him was gone, and they had no plan for what came next. When an enforcer can't fight anymore, they become invisible. Derek retreated to his Minneapolis apartment, experiencing severe post-concussion syndrome. The Rangers told him to avoid the rink because the site could induce nausea. They sent balanced meals daily. He threw them out and ordered fast food. He slept through entire days. Texts from family went unanswered. Friends who had visited earlier in the season stopped coming. Once a week, he drove to Long Island to buy thousands of dollars worth of prescription pills from a dealer. His father visited in January and found Derek still getting prescriptions from team doctors despite his addiction history. Derek cried at his arms several times. The Rangers sent him to rehab in California. He skipped meetings and therapy sessions, spending $32,000 in 2 weeks, including $5,000 renting a Porsche. At an April practice, he was so impaired that he couldn't stay on his skates and fell repeatedly. In May, Derek was granted permission to leave rehab for his sister's graduation. He flew to Minneapolis with his brother Aaron. On May 11th, he returned from the California facility. The next day, Aaron gave him 1 oxycodone pill. Derek went out drinking across the warehouse district. 2 days later, Aaron couldn't reach him. When he opened the apartment door, Derek Boogaard was dead. Derek's death wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the reckoning.
Fighting in hockey was never my calling growing up, but it's something I grew to love, and I would never have done it without Derek.
The Boogaard family donated Derek's brain to Boston University's Center for the Study of Traumatic Encephalopathy. On December 6, 2011, neuropathologist Dr. Ann McKee announced her findings. Derek had CTE. What shocked the researchers was the severity. Dr. McKee examined the brain tissue under a microscope and found deposits of tau proteins spreading through his cerebral cortex, the same protein clusters found in patients with advanced Alzheimer's disease. The damage was more advanced than that of most other athletes his age that McKee had ever examined. When she saw the extent of the deterioration, she said it was a wow moment. Derek Boogaard had been dying in public for years. We just called it hockey. Within 4 months of Derek's death, 2 more enforcers died. On August 15, 2011, Rick Rippon was found dead at his home in Alberta. He was 27. The cause was suicide. Rippon had battled depression for nearly a decade and had taken personal leave from the Vancouver Canucks to deal with it. 16 days later, on August 31st, Wade Belak was found in a Toronto hotel room. He was 35, recently retired after a 14-year career. His death was initially reported as a suicide, though his family later said it was accidental. Belak's wife Jennifer had noticed changes 5 years earlier. He became introverted and quiet at home, couldn't handle noises, and his memory deteriorated to a point where he took pictures of groceries he needed to buy. The families began connecting. Conversations happened quietly, away from the media. Some enforcers reportedly connected privately to discuss symptoms they were experiencing: headaches, memory problems, and depression. Nobody wanted to go public. The job required appearing invincible. Admitting weakness meant losing your roster spot. Steve Montador died in 2015 at age 35. His brain also showed CTE. The Boogaard family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the NHL in May 2013. Their lawyers uncovered that Derek had received at least 11 prescriptions from 8 different doctors during 1 season with Minnesota. After a fractured tooth with the Rangers, team physicians issued 17 prescriptions totaling 366 pills. When his father had visited him in New York months before his death, Derek was still receiving prescriptions from team doctors despite his documented addiction and recent rehab stays. The lawsuit alleged Derek even received a 4-day advance notice of his next drug test. 3 enforcers died in 4 months. How did the NHL respond? NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman told the New York Times there wasn't a lot of data and that experts thought it was premature to draw conclusions about CTE in hockey. The league had no plans to change the rules about fighting. But the pressure mounted. 3 dead enforcers in 4 months couldn't be ignored. Slowly, policies shifted. The NHL implemented concussion protocols requiring players with head injuries to be examined in a quiet room away from the bench. Blindside hits to the head were banned. It was progress, though critics noted it came too late for Derek and the others. Former enforcers began speaking publicly. Georges Laraque told a Canadian radio program he hated fighting despite his successful career. He hated the pressure, hated being called a goon and an animal, and hated promoting violence. He described the constant anxiety of knowing you'd have to fight Derek Boogaard or someone like him, the worry that consumed you the night before games, during movies, every waking moment. Many enforcers, he said, drank heavily just to deal with it. The culture of silence was breaking. Teams started moving away from traditional enforcers. Analytics departments proved what many suspected. Fighting didn't prevent injuries or help teams win games. The economic shift followed the data. In Derek's final season of 2010-11, the NHL recorded 714 fights. In recent seasons, that number dropped to 246, a 65% decline. Current players began refusing the enforcer role entirely, changing what was acceptable. The job that had defined Derek's career was disappearing. Derek's mother, Joanne, testified before Congress about violence in sports. His brain became part of an ongoing CTE research at Boston University, contributing to studies that have now examined hundreds of athletes. The Derek Boogaard substance abuse program was created to help players struggling with addiction. Young hockey players entering the NHL today have never seen a traditional enforcer fight. The game is faster, more skilled, and less brutal. Derek wanted to play hockey. The NHL turned him into something else. The question isn't whether he was a player or a fighter. It's whether we're finally ready to stop creating boogeymen. How many stories like Derek's are buried in league offices? Subscribe to Skates and Scars for the ones that never make the highlight reel.